Then this is why you should watch on YouTube also.
Yeah.
If you're just listening. But
so I'll pop this open here real quick. This is a mini goat. I actually carry one of these every day in my pocket. So this blade right here is 90 thousandths thick. That's about a 3 1/4 inch blade or so, 3-inch blade. This edge right here is about 10 thousandths thick. So if you look at the profile of that tip, if you decide you're going to use this as a screwdriver and you're going to break it. Yeah. Like it's going to break.
Yeah.
But when you're using this knife for cutting tasks, like as a hunting knife, if you're caping out an animal, I've broken down whole elk with this knife without sharpening. I cut an elk completely in half with this blade, through the spine, took the joints, the hips apart, the whole 9 yards with this blade.
Wow.
They're an impressive little knife. But again, would I send this knife to Afghanistan with a ranger? No, I wouldn't. Because if he's across that side of the world, he doesn't know what he's going to run into. You try to pry a door open with this thing, it's going to break.
Yeah.
Right? So,
well, to me, that's the one that you keep in your pocket that you only use if somebody's on top of you.
Yeah.
Like you don't open boxes with it. You don't.
Right. And it's generally it's just your handy, got to cut a little rope or open an MRE or whatever you got to do, with that blade. Now, you start stepping up. We have hunting knives that get a little bit bigger in size and a little bit thicker. The guy that wants to rip up through the sternum of a white-tailed deer, pop cartilage.
Or a terrorist.
Or a terrorist, which I fully support. And then you start getting into the tactical stuff. And again, I'm no quote unquote operator. But I have a lot of friends obviously in this space, and I actually went to, Brian Morgan, Hat Creek Training out in Idaho. He runs a sniper training facility there for all special forces guys. He runs active duty teams. That's all he does is special forces sniper teams come through there every week. It's an incredible place to train. Holy shit. I mean, you're shooting, they think the house is at about 2,800 feet in elevation, and you'll go up to 6,500 or something like that. And it's super high angle, cross canyon, dealing with winds.
Wow. Where at in Idaho?
Rigby. I went there last year. Actually earlier this year, and he was kind enough to let me sit in with a bunch of Army sniper guys, and I got to just kind of be a fly on the wall during that class, and then I got to shoot with all of them and did some training for a SIG event that I went and did. A competition.
That's cool.
But I went last fall to, he has an event every 2 years. It's called the Nasty, and it's a competition between all the branches of the Special Forces snipers. And so you got your SEALs there and your Green Berets and Air Force guys. You got everybody, Coast Guard guys, all these different guys there. And then they run through and they shoot. I think it's over 3 or 4 days. And it's mind-boggling. I mean, you're watching these guys shoot 1,300 meters across a canyon, and the wind's going left at 20 miles an hour on your ridge, and it's going right at 30 miles an hour on the far ridge, and they're trying to call wind, and it's fucking awesome.
That's cool.
But we give away we give a knife away every single week to his top shooter award for each team. But when I went to that Nasty, I took a bunch of our kind of tactical knives that we were developing at that time and showed them around to those dudes. And one thing you'll learn when you talk to all these different guys from I could talk to 10 different SEALs and ask them what the perfect knife is, and you get 12 answers.
Yeah.
I started learning there's no consensus in that world over anything.
Yeah. Except the only thing 2 people can agree on is that the third guy doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Which sounds like I was a lineman for the power company, and that it was the same kind of culture. But like this is a dagger that we came up with that's kind of modeled after the V24, kind of the famous dagger that was made for the Devil's Brigade, kind of where Special Forces was actually born.
Yeah.
And but I shortened it up and I made it more carryable. But this is where you start getting into the thickness question of a blade. What is a dagger for? It's made for stabbing somebody in the goddamn neck or chest, right? So I'm less worried now about exactly how sharp I can get the edge. How long is that edge going to last? You know, it's less of a cutting tool that a different design knife is than this. Now I start worrying about how robust is the tip, how robust is the blade if it does hit something hard. And you start having that balance, right? We have a task force knife, we call it, that's like a typical 4-inch blade. But it's thicker than our 4-inch hunting knife blade because, again, I'm trying to provide some insurance that guy can do whatever he needs to on the other side of the world and come home with his knife not broken half. Yeah. You know, and so there is a real fine line and a balance with this stuff. Yeah. And you're trying to kind of, we're not, with our hunting stuff, every now and then people break tips off of knives. I don't try to make knives for the lowest common denominator. Like if you're an idiot, you could break one of our knives. Yeah. If you're using it to cut and do what it's designed to do, it's probably going to do a better job than most any other production knife you're going to find on the market.
Yeah. Well, I think the other thing too, I mean, it's really no different than firearms. You know, it's like, hey, what gun are you going to carry? It's like, well, what are we doing?
Right.
You know,
exactly.
How far is a shot? Is it, you know, are we clearing rooms where there's no fucking room, you know, on a ship? Is it, you know, like do I need 1,400 yards of fucking accuracy? I mean, right. Shooting, you know, people that are for sure wearing fucking body armor and, you know, what, like, you know, so to me, it's, you know, selecting the specific tool for the job is the biggest part of it.
Yeah.
You know, because if you're fucking that up, like, it doesn't matter how good it is. If it's not applicable, I mean, it's like using a hammer instead of a screwdriver, you know, it's like, it doesn't matter how good the hammer is, you know, if it's not really doing what you need. But,
well, and I see a ton of guys in the military actually starting to carry over the last few years before we ever tried to market or do anything with the actual military space. You see a ton of guys carrying, you know, this mini goat knife, because this knife, I mean, feel what that weighs. That's 1 ounce.
Yeah, it weighs nothing.
So guys love to tuck that in somewhere on their kit. Yeah. 99% of the time, they're not going to need it. If they do need a blade, it's generally just going to be a utilitarian little thing. Yeah. They use it. And also you got 6 or 8 feet of cord there. So if you need to,
that's sharp.
if you need to pull that cord off of there, you actually have cord to use.
Yeah. That's super cool.
But again, they're going to probably have a backup knife that's longer, that's more robust, that if they're really going to get in a bind, you know, if you're going through SEER school, that's not the blade for you. Yeah. You know.
And you processed a whole elk with that fucking thing.
Yeah.
Wow. I was going to ask, the knife that you passed your master bladesmith test with, I'm assuming you still have that?
I do, yeah.
I mean, is that something you like put in a fucking case and like frame?
I should. It's just sitting in my gun safe. Yeah. And that's the first phase. That's your performance blade.
Oh, okay.
You then have to fly to Atlanta to the Atlanta Blade Show and present 5 knives to a panel of judges, and they judge the fit and finish of the blade. So, of all of your knives. So if they find anything wrong with any of those knives, they'll fail you.
If that does happen, if you fail, do you have to wait a certain amount of time before you can?
6 months, 6 months.
Can you do it as many times as you want?
Yeah, you can. I've seen people try a couple times and then give up. Yeah. And the blade that you do for your journeyman test for the performance is just a plain steel blade, meaning it's not Damascus. But the blade you do for your mastersmith test has to be out of 300 layers of Damascus steel or more. So you have to forge your own steel for that. And those blades are allowed to crack to a certain point. They just aren't allowed to break. They can't crack past halfway. Okay. So when you bend a blade that far, there again, you can allow a little bit of a crack. They just don't want a complete failure. Yeah. The Damascus steel portion adds an element too, because you're forge welding steel together.
So you bring up Damascus, and that makes me curious that there are a lot of higher end knife manufacturers or bladesmiths, whatever you want to call them, out there today, and kind of in this space that say it's Damascus, but technically it isn't, though, is it? It's not true Damascus?
I'm seeing a lot of like faux Damascus stuff where they laser a pattern on the blade.
But it's not actual layered steel the way true Damascus is. Correct?
No, and which really pisses me off because when you make Damascus for real, you forge welding at 2200 degrees or higher, generally around 2500. You're forge welding layers of steel together to
300?
make one billet.